So why is it that when you talk about politics that you completely miss the point? Well, it's really simple. People who talk about politics are wrong. They're most of the time wrong for talking about their politics. Here's why, because I know when I say that, most people they get really frustrated about that. So many people love to argue politics, gay marriage, abortion, all of these really hot moral topics, and they really, really believe that their point is right. And there's a few reasons why this is wrong. So if we're talking to a non-believer and you're a believer and you're talking about why they should stop murdering babies, and that's oftentimes how it's worded. And that is what it is, by the way. I'm not saying that it's not that, but I'm just saying what you do is you're creating an immediate barrier with this person that probably stops them, hinders them probably from ever listening and receiving the gospel from you. Actually, I just had one of my buddies talking with me earlier today, and he said that when he first gave his life to Jesus, that he was in forums, arguing with people about Jesus and stuff, arguing with people about politics and stuff like that. And he said, I probably just permanently ruined my witness with this person as well. And there's a pretty genuine reality to that a lot of times. And obviously there's grace. And, people, you're going to go to hell, or that person's going to go to hell because you talked to them about politics one time. But we should really consider the fact that you're not going to ever bring somebody to Jesus. I've heard hundreds, if not thousands, of testimonies. And I've never heard a single one go, oh yeah, somebody started with an argument where they talked to me about why I was wrong about my political views and now I follow Jesus. I've never heard that story ever in my entire life, and I probably never will. And the reason is because this is not a very good strategy in regards to encouraging or convincing somebody to give their lives to Jesus. So what is the solution? Just don't talk about politics, Cody? Well, kinda. I mean, I've seen so many people give their lives to Jesus who I didn't try to get them to change their political stance on something, and I've seen tremendous amounts of fruit from doing this. Now, again, does that mean that the very next day their view on the political topic changed? Probably didn't change the next day. But do I need it to change the next day? No. Why would I need it to change the next day? People would go, well, because Cody, it's murder and they could cause harm. Well, okay, first off, consider this. Somebody, when it comes to their view on homosexual marriage or their view on abortion, more than likely is not participating in either of these things themselves. They're just speaking for the general public that they believe, is marginalized and doesn't have a voice. So the likelihood of it playing any sort of relevancy in their individual lives is very unlikely, first off. Second off, guys, this is called sanctification. This is what every Christian goes through. You and your Christian walk, when you gave your life to Jesus, didn't have it all together and didn't have all the right theological viewpoints on everything. Actually, you're a Christian today and you still don't. And I don't either. We're all growing and going through this journey as believers together. And not having the conversation with somebody about politics, but just having a conversation about Christ crucified, you'll find does a few things. First off, makes your job a whole lot easier. Second off, it makes you not have to worry about the constant debating and arguing with people. And lastly, people are going to be open to receiving the gospel way more than they are receiving why they should be Republican or Democrat instead. Not a good idea. Not a good idea. So make sure that your focus in your conversations with people is on the gospel, and you'll see a lot more people's hearts changed about the political views that they have in the first place. So that's on number one in regards to believer versus non-believer. Now how about believer to believer? Well, again, this is one of those conversations that if you want to have a nice, calm, cool, collected, genuine conversation with somebody, I have no problem with it. I have these conversations on, a rather maybe consistent basis, I'll say. And it's fine. At the end of it, we can still completely disagree and we're totally cool. But again, it takes a very, very special kind of person to be, and I'm not saying I'm special, I'm just saying it takes a unique kind of person to be able to get in a political conversation that you completely disagree with somebody about and stay cool. And at the end of it, still be cool and just as good of friends afterwards and not feel the need to talk behind that person's back about their stupid political views later, right? So this takes a very special kind of person. But if you're that kind of person who can do that, then yeah, do it. I encourage you to do it. Because again, it's healthy to have these conversations and disagreements. But here's the real kicker in this whole thing. As a Christian, if you are having conversations with people about politics, 9 times out of 10, it's a divisive conversation. This is a conversation that is not bringing fruit to either side, and it's helping divide the church. I don't know if you know this, Christian, but the church is very divided as is. It didn't need your help in divisiveness. It's very divisive, and it's going to continue to stay divisive as long as we talk about all of our differences. Why don't we focus on the things that we agree with? Can we all agree that Christ crucified is the most important thing to talk about as a believer? I hope so. So great. Let's talk about that and work in that and focus on that. But unfortunately, I see Christians more times than not, they focus the majority of their energy and their time as Christians on all of these topics that are not gospel-centric. And I really don't know why we have to do that. I mean, it's a perfect scheme from the enemy to get believers to focus on all of the wrong things. He totally wins when he gets us arguing over everything but focusing on the gospel. And unfortunately, this has crept into our churches as well, where on Sunday mornings, a lot of our sermons and everything are about things that are not gospel-centric. You can say, well, Cody, our people in the church are already saved, so they need to hear about different topics. Okay, agreed. That's fine. First off, assuming that everybody in your church is saved, which I would argue that actually probably the majority of them aren't saved. Maybe they said a prayer, but like actually living with fruit bearing to Jesus, I would say definitely not. Most churches don't have that. And then on top of that point, like, yeah, okay, great. So they're born again. So what are they doing with their born again life to make sure that other people can become born again? Because if they're not doing anything, then all of your sermons should be on that topic until we have that thing mastered. Like, we always just bounce from topic to topic to topic in the churches, and we never actually land and stay somewhere long enough for people's hearts to be changed more times than not. And you can say, well, Cody, my church does sermon series where we'll stay on the same topic for 10 weeks. Okay, that's great. But does your church look anything more like that topic afterwards? Like, can anybody look and say, wow, I remember last time I went to your church before you guys had this this sermon on self-control, and like, man, I could just see the lack of self-control. Now I go to your church and I can just see the self-control on everybody. Usually that's not the case. Again, I know that it happens. I know that there's exceptions to everything that I'm saying right now. I'm sure that there's been a person before who has been brought to Jesus through an argument in politics. Like, I believe all of those things. But when we're talking about the consistent thing that we see in Scripture, I don't know why Christians oftentimes always want to elaborate on the exception versus the rule. And the rule here is focus on Christ crucified. Our conversation should be revolving around this and how we can make Jesus' name magnified more and more every single day. And if our focus is there, we're going to see a lot more people come to Jesus and a lot less arguments about politics, because people are going to actually end up agreeing anyways about our political views because they're going to be born again, instead of arguing people or trying to convince people to change their minds so that at some point later on they'll hopefully give their lives to Jesus. It's just a very challenging strategy in regards to trying to bring people to the Lord. So anyways, appreciate y'all. Love y'all. Chat with y'all in the next one.